Hey, how's it going everyone? We're here today with the S.H MonsterArts Gamera 2023 from the anime Gamera Rebirth. Now, it hasn't come out yet. I think September 6th or 9th is the first episode. It's a 6-episode anime series on Netflix. So yeah, the first brand new Gamera series had in a long time, since I think the third movie, I believe. But yeah, so definitely pumped for this. That's basically looks like from the trailer going to be almost battle royale style series similar to that of Godzilla SP. I think there's about 5 or 6 other kaiju which Gamera will be fighting up against. So I've got a feeling we may get more announcements from the S.H MonsterArts line once the anime does start next month in September. Just like the Godzilla SP, we had Godzilla, Jet Jaguar and Rodan. So we had a few releases from that series, so I'm guessing Gamera will get a few more as well. Now the box itself is looking nice and this is heavy. When the package arrived earlier I was definitely surprised. I chucked on some scales and it's about 1.5 kg. So it definitely is hefty. If you are importing from Japan, expect the shipping fees to be a bit higher than normal. Now obviously on the front we've got the usual Tamashii Bandai logo. This was a retail release here, so we don't have the Tamashii logo or the web exclusive logo on it. On the back we have a nice selection of images showcasing the figure itself, as well as that window here, so we can get a close look at the figure. Very similar to the other retail releases from, was it GVK last year or year before? Man, it's been a while actually. So yeah, since the Godzilla vs Kong ones, same box design. Now just like the release of a recent 90s Gamera, we also got the flying stand and the tail and flying wing parts as well, so we can switch those in and out just like the recent release, which is really cool. Though we will get a bit of a closer look soon. There definitely is a size difference. It makes the 90s one look like a little wee baby turtle in comparison. But anyway, enough of that. Let's pop him out of the box so we can get a closer look at that finish and all the different parts that he does come with. Okay, in the main packaging we have Gamera himself along with the flying legs, wings, arms I guess. And then obviously in the back we have the base stand part, the cradle part that he rests in for flying, as well as the tail with the jet booster part for his legs, which looks really cool. So looking forward to popping this out and attaching it to him a little bit later in the video. But for now we will take Gamera out of the packaging here, chuck him on the turntable and get a closer look. Okay, so Gamera's spinning around here and straight away you'll probably notice that subtle earthy green with the kind of, I don't want to say charcoal, but almost a greeny charcoal, real earthy, dark, wet mud clay type of a look. It's actually quite hard to pinpoint the exact kind of look and colour of him, but it definitely does mix and match in between the subtly lighter and darker tones, which does give him a lovely contrast to him. And that combined with all the texture on the shell, the kind of wavy patterns in there, everything just brings it together beautifully to give it the nice depth and detail. Along with the skin or the scales on his body, there isn't many smooth parts. Everything is textured and sculpted around, so it does bring him to life beautifully well. And it does capture the light and shadows really well. So even though the color scheme is very samey throughout his whole body from the shell and main body, the fact that it does capture the light well, it does mean it stands out, and we do get really subtle differences here and there, which is nice. The claws are very basic and just a straight dark charcoal black color, with a bit of a shine to them. When you compare it to the 90s Gamera, which has that actual claw color to it, I feel like the original detailing is, at least for me, more aesthetically pleasing. The eye is really bright, so we can definitely see the color difference there from the pupil and the rest of the eye, which is great. The the massive teeth or tusks on him are nice and stick out, and then he has a beautifully colored mouth as well, which we'll get a closer look at soon. But we do have a full tongue in there, and everything will move up and down as well. The teeth, yeah, pretty standard, and they kind of match them with the more recent MonsterArts releases. You know, a little bit of deformity here and there, but you know, as a monster that's chowing down on base, left, right, and center, so you can't really expect fully perfect, you know, pristine white teeth on a monster. But yeah, overall, at least from a standard viewing distance, it looks really nice from both the detailing, coloring, and the teeth sculpting as well. So yeah, let's pop them off the turntable here, and then we can check out the points of articulation on them before we take them apart and switch them up into the flying form, and then we can recap with the pros and cons at the end. So yeah, let's get them off and start checking out the articulation. Okay, so starting with the head here, overall the articulation is pretty nice. We have the left and right swivel, which is really nice. At least for me, I found the head can pop off a little bit easy. So if that does happen, it will reattach without any issues, but you may need to adjust the pegs around it a little bit. But you can look up pretty well, and then same with going down actually. So he has quite a decent amount of motion all the way around the neck area, with about 4 different points of articulation. And as you saw earlier, the mouth will open really wide as well, which is good. Again, this is on a very small peg in there, and I found that the plastic, at least compared to some other models, just a little bit softer, so it can come out, but the peg will reattach. So again, if you are, I guess, a little bit on the rougher side at first, and if anything does come apart, it will reattach without any problem, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, as we can see, lovely motion all the way up and around. Now coming into the shoulder joint here, we have a decent amount of range both up and down, and then we've got what's about 3 different points there. So we've got a few millimeter of motion on the twisting, and then the joint itself will move up, down, and all the way around, which is really cool. So surprisingly, a pretty decent range of motion. Now when it comes to the hand, we have a little small one on the wrist. If you have, say, GVK Kong, I feel like it's a pretty similar design, and pretty similar to that of the 90s Gamera as well, just a lot longer. Okay, so the next main point of articulation is going to be in the leg area. Again, we have the usual swivel up and down. There is a small knee joint. We don't get a huge amount of motion in here, but definitely once you get into the right angle, maybe about 5 to 10 mil. Again, if it's a little bit stiff at first, you might need to play around with it a little bit, but it can loosen up over time. But that knee joint is the main point of articulation, and as you can hear, it's a little bit squeaky on my version here. Okay, and then coming down to the lower part of the foot, again, got a little bit of a swivel around here, a few millimeters of motion up and down, so we do have 1, 2 joints there. At the lower ankle, we don't really have much motion, though there is a subtle joint. It's just very minuscule. Okay, now over to one of my favorite parts of a MonsterArts, and that is the tail, and we have a decent amount of points of articulation here, and a lot of them actually blend in really well, so it's quite hard to tell at first glance. But as we can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of articulation along the main tail, and each one works beautifully well with each other to give a nice fluid range of motion. So it definitely feels very nice to move and pose. And yeah, it looks really good, especially with the extra detailing along the spine of the tail. Okay, so I've got the various parts here for the flying form, and we'll switch over to that in a moment. But you can see how his rear legs are kind of tucked in, and it makes a fighter jet style jet engine look, which is really, really badass. It seems like the tail kind of Goes in a little bit to give it a bit more rigidity for that flying. Definitely pumped to put this on in a moment. But before we do that, we'll have a quick look at the wings here, which is very sharp, so do be careful with that. Everything again sculpted and coloured to match the main body. The flying stand is really cool, definitely get a lot of motion in there, and the turquoise colour is beautiful and definitely matches the highlights on the underside of Gamera. Now for the stand itself, we have the main rod, the cradle for the body, and then I believe, which way around does this go? Nope, okay, only fits in one way, so we can slot this in like so. And the cradle will go on top, and then we've got the main base, which then I assume once you line it up, it will fit in with the underside of the body. So nice and easy to use. Though looking at this, it does appear we basically have to take the whole of Gamera apart to switch around the parts. So let's check the manual quickly, and then we can do that. So the first step is to pop off the arm, tail, legs. Then we can take off the underside. We can then, okay, that's the front of the shell. Then the whole inner compartment will pop off, leaving you with the head and shell. At which point you then connect this up with the inner part, reconnect it in, then you can pop in the wings and then place it on the stand. So overall, doesn't look too bad. But yeah, let's start dissecting, I guess. So the first step was to pull off the arm, so get it, oh, okay, that's pretty easy. We just see the inner joint there, so do it on this side, just grab on the upper arm and pull that out. Okay, that's both arms removed. Next is the legs, which we should be able to pop off in the same manner. Man, these are actually attached really firm. Let's try this leg. Nope, okay. Instead of legs, let's go for the tail first. Okay, that one there pops off definitely a bit easier since you have a nice grip. Actually, that does give you a bit better access to the leg, so yeah. Arms, tail, then I guess legs. Get it in there, just try and pop it off. Man, this is tight. Okay, let's try this leg then. Might need to go get a hairdryer and warm this up actually before pulling it out. Okay, hopefully that loosened up enough to be able to pop this off. There we go. Whew, there goes one leg. And the next. Okay, so we got 1 and 2, though this one, actually on mine, it's really tight. That joint is still stuck in there, so I'll need to warm this up and maybe get some pliers and pop it out. But yeah, overall, these are really tight. The hairdryer definitely makes it easier, so if you are struggling with a tight joint in the legs, I do recommend getting that to remove it. So now that we have the legs off, I do have the peg still stuck on this bottom leg because it's a bit tight, so I will fix that in a moment. But first, let's take it apart and get down to the starting point for attaching on the flying points. For flying parts. Now the torso itself, this should come off according to the manual. Yep, okay, that came off pretty easy. And then that gives us access to the full underside of them. Now this main inner section here should come off, and the neck should stay where it is. So I think, okay, that's coming up pretty well. Okay, excellent, there we go, we've got that off. and we actually have full access to the neck peg as well. This is essentially a full dissection of Gamera, which is really cool. And yeah, the shell is super thick. It does appear this is probably 2 parts, so we've got 1 and 2, and this one is most likely glued on though. So I won't try and take it off, but yeah, definitely a lot of weight in the shell. Now the center torso area here is hollow, so that is good, so that will reduce weight a little bit. But yeah, pretty basic. All we need to do now is attach on the flying half on this, and we can attach it. But to do that, I need to remove this peg. Now unfortunately for me, I don't think it's a full breakage, but it seems like this peg, I guess that's the cap part, should go in here. So I need to warm that and pop it back in soon. But first, this, for me, this one moves but super tight. So I'm going to warm it up, pop it out, and then we can attach the flying parts. But for a joint like this, you can use like what they call shock oil or silicone oil, 100%. The reason why it's called shock oil is because it's used in these shock absorbers in RC cars. Yeah, that's basically all they use, so it makes things a lot nicer to move around. Okay, so I was humming and hawing about if I should just stop the review here, wait a week or two and then continue, but you know what? Sometimes this happens, and the best course of action is just to contact the customer service. So I try to get this out, but it is definitely really stuck in there, and even if I get it out, I feel like there's going to be issues going forward. So instead of forcing it out, I figured contact customer service and they'll send a replacement. Best thing to do in this type of situation, and that's one reason why I'm just going to stop the review in terms of setting them up here, but I will finish a review and post it in this situation, because I think it's important as well to highlight that sometimes this happens. You know, this just has a slightly tighter joint than normal. Everything does work except for taking it out. When you do encounter this on any figure, you know, if you can pop it out yourself, awesome, but never push it so far where you risk breaking it or further damage. In that situation, contact your local supplier, your local distributor, importer, or even the shop where you got it from, to get either a replacement part or a full swap or a refund. Bondi is really good at dealing with these types of issues. For any mass-produced item, you are always going to come across little wee things like this every now and then. To be honest, out of all the figures I've been purchasing, you can see heaps in the background. This is probably the first time I've run into any major block like this on a MonsterArts or a Figure Arts release. Sometimes you have an odd, subtly tight joint, and a bit of shock oil ends up loosening right up. Or maybe like the recent, if you put Dreamball, the Trunks figure recently, the lower legs are looser than other figures, but when you pose it and, you know, stand in there, no issues. So generally speaking, you know, some fingers, you know, it's a bit hit and miss like this, but if you ever run into a situation where either there's a breakage out of a box, missing part, maybe a duplicate faceplate, that sometimes happens, or in this situation, a joint or a peg is so tight where it won't actually come out of the joint how it's designed to, then contact the customer service center for a replacement. But anyway, I won't let this part stop me from going to pros and cons, because overall we've seen the figure in its base form. We do have the parts for the flying form. Even if we can't fully connect it up, we have a great idea of how it does look, and it looks awesome. But at this point I can't, you know, fully set up in the flying form because that's what I was most excited for. But I will do a follow-up for this video in a couple of weeks once I do get the replacement. But yeah, overall for pros and cons, the weight of this figure is amazing. I love the colour detailing, the stand, the turquoise colour, everything like that, and all the highlights on the underside of Gamera is wonderful. I feel like he is a bit more on the expensive side, but he is weighty, so I do understand. But I feel like if I was going to go for a Gamera, I much prefer the recent re-release one. Even if it is a bit smaller, you get a bit more of a brighter greens in here, and I kind of prefer the overall design for this one. but maybe that will change once I see Gamera Rebirth, which is coming at the start of September. Definitely looking forward to that, especially more for the Battle Royale style brawls that we've kind of been teased at with the trailers so far. But yeah, definitely drop a comment below what you think about this figure so far, and if you've encountered these type of issues before and how you went about handling it. And yeah, if you are in a country that maybe doesn't have a direct Bandai, how has your experience been with getting replacement parts? Definitely keen to hear your personal experiences on that. And yeah, I'll contact the customer service today, request a part for this. Previously, when I've done like with gacha items, you know, within a week I've had a new part sent out. So definitely post a follow-up for this, maybe on Insta or just on the community story here on YouTube. So keep an eye out for that, and obviously once I get all the parts, I'll reassemble it and take a bunch of photos and post those as well. So yeah, anyway, again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheers!